Thank you very much. We'll start with the Metro Cable announcement. The open session is videotaped for Cablecast on Metro 14. Replay on Saturday, January 14, 2017 at 4 o'clock, and Sunday, January 15, 2017 at 12 noon on Channel 14. The webcast is at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. Right now is the public opportunity to discuss matters of interest within the district's jurisdiction, including items that are on or not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
There are no speakers this evening.
Wonderful. Let's move on to the consent calendar. Do we have any comments?
Make a motion we adopt.
I've got a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please?
Director Gale,
Yes.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Sheets, aye. Clark,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
and Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, we'll move on to the action items. Jeff Fry, our Economic Development Manager. Item number 1 is yours.
Good evening, directors. I have 2 items for your consideration tonight. Both of them are related to the disposition of real property, and specifically asking you to declare the property as surplus so we can take what is the second step in a multi-step process to dispose of those assets. So what I'd like to do tonight is just take a couple of minutes, give you a little bit of background on the 2 lots, talk a little bit about the process and the steps involved, and then answer any questions that you may have. So a quick little background. 1975, the Sacramento County Fire Department purchased a 3.4 acre site at the southwest corner of Greenback and Kenneth Avenue for the eventual construction of a fire station. Fast forward a couple decades, early 2000s, Metro Fire decided it was time to build Station 29 and considered that site and quickly realized in the planning process that it wasn't going to fit our needs. First problem was the site was essentially too shallow. There was about 210 feet of depth. Typically, we need 250 to 300 feet of depth to move the apparatus in and out of the site. And the second issue were the development costs. The site is abnormally long, over 700 feet long along Greenback. So the cost to install curbs, gutters, streetlights, what we typically call off-site improvements, was extremely expensive. So rather than developing that site, the district chose to purchase an alternate site about a half a mile to the east at 8681 Greenback Lane. I'd just like to mention that that site, the southwest corner there, that 3.4 acre site, has remained vacant ever since. So we did, mid-2000s, eventually construct Station 29 at 8681 Greenback. That site is just a tad under 5 acres. Typically, a prototypical site for us is about 2.5 to 3 acres. So we chose to build Station 29 on the front site, front half of that site, install a masonry wall and a wrought iron fence that separated the front portion about 2.5 acres from the rear portion, about 2.5 acres. So now we have this vacant piece of land sitting behind Station 29 that's essentially not used. So as I understand it, early last year we had a couple of interested parties contact the district in both sites, at which point in time we considered, do we need them moving forward? And essentially, what is the fair market value of those sites? So we did have both of those sites appraised. And which gets me to the second item I want to talk about is the steps of actually disposing the assets. So in my mind, the first step is kind of an internal review, looking at some of what I call our planning documents, the standards of cover, our growth plan through 2035, to look at, do we need these assets in any time in the future? Given the relatively close proximity, about a half mile from where we actually built Station 29, there really is no foreseeable need for the vacant site, the 3.4 acre sites at the southwest corner there. Additionally, the 2.5 acre site behind the station is not needed either. looking at those planning documents. So that, in essence, was step one. Step two would be actually what we're doing tonight. It's for the board to declare the property as surplus. So we actually have a policy. Board has a fixed asset policy. And Section 3 specifically describes what the district is supposed to do when moving forward for this process. Our staff reports comply with that standard or that policy. I would take a second just to mention that we did establish fair market value for both sites. And specifically, the policy asset tells us to recommend a method of disposal. So just to take a quick second here, I would recommend a traditional conventional sale for both sites with one caveat on the 2.5 acres behind Station 29. There's relatively little marketability for the site. It doesn't have any direct access to any roads, so we don't have ingress or egress to the site, which limits the marketability and the utility of the site, which is reflected in the fair market value. So what I would recommend is, should the board declare these as surplus and allow us to move forward, I would actually recommend in direct conversation with our neighbors first to see if they're interested in the land, and then moving forward with a conventional marketing strategy for the sale of the property. So third step, should the board declare tonight the property as surplus, the next step for us is to comply with the California Land Surplus Act, which actually requires us to notify a number of public agencies for various purposes of our intent to sell. And it essentially gives them 60 days to respond or produce a written offer or a written interest in the land itself. Should no public agency be interested, then we would then be able to move forward with our recommended process as far as marketing the sites for sale. And I would like to mention there are a lot of steps between tonight and the actual disposition of the assets. So, and there's a lot of things that could happen. So we are proposing to come back to the board prior to escrow, should we have an interested party, and go through what has essentially happened between now and then to get to that point as an update. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fry. Do anyone have questions for Mr. Fry?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
It sounds to me like you've described both action items, 1 and 2.
Yes, sir.
Do we need to have a separate motion for each action item, or can we? So I make a motion, we adopt action item number 1, surplus real property, 8681 Greenback Lane.
Do I have a second? We got a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please?
Director Gale.
Yes.
Gould.
Aye.
Orzali. Jones.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
and Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we adopt action item number 2, surplus real property, some big, huge, long number, APN.
I've got a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please?
Director Gale.
Yes.
Gould.
Aye.
Orzali.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
and Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, Mr. Fry. We're going to table action item number 3 until after closed session. We'll come back to that. Move on to reports, President's report. All I have to say is a welcome to Director Sheets and Director Gale. I apologize for missing your swearing in last month, but look forward to working with you both. Fire Chief's report. Chief Harms.
Directors, good evening. As you know, I'll let Chief Bridge talk more about it, but it has been a very busy few days with the amount of rain and water and everything else that's going on. And I haven't seen much of him today. I think he's been quite busy with a number of stuff that's going on. For myself, there's been a number of meetings that I've been attending, especially right after the first of the year here, and continue to meet with the command staff as we move forward into 2017. One of the meetings that was attended by a number of the folks from the district was a labor management joint meeting on behavioral health. And in the fire service, we've really working together with my labor partners that I saw them here earlier, of truly looking at our membership and saying, what are we doing for them and what are we doing for the future? And the conference was very good, and Metro is already taking steps forward to what I would say is now the new gold standard for mental health, behavioral health, and taking care of our members. We had some new hire. We had a new hire. We have a new account tech, Alina, who started on the 12th. And one of the things at the end of the year we saw a number of was that we had 11 retirements of 5 captains, 3 engineers, a firefighter, and 2 staff. So we had Captain Joe Pick with 25 years, Engineer Dan Castill with 24 years, firefighter Don Godfrey with 22 years, Engineer Dave Hardman with 24, Captain Lynette Hall with 22 years, Engineer Veronica Sorgi, 13 years, Captain Phil Seidke, 28 years. Is that close? Okay, good. Captain Eric Rubalcava, 18 years, Michael Halbury, 27 years, and account specialist Matt Davies with 17 years, and communications technician John Cipollone with 14 years. And I think it just is that time. But again, as we said in December, what a bunch of experience moving on, and I wish them all well as they move forward into their retirement. We have some staff, some recruiting going on for single role. We have some public information officers. Michelle is here, and she has chose to go back to the field, and so we're going to try to find somebody to replace her, and we have some EMS shift captains that are moving in and out. And do we have that slide?
Yes. It's coming up.
I know that a lot of stuff comes across in front of you, and we kind of look at it, and we ask you to entrust in us that we have training, or we're spending some money on some service, or we're come to you and we ask for grant money. But I think it's important that on the back side of it, and I'll just take a second to talk about, and part of it is the great job that our members do out there every single day. But one of the things that Michelle actually had brought to me that, and it's not the members bragging about themselves, but something that finally comes to us, is we had a 41-year-old male who was going to a Rally's to go shopping, walks inside the store and has a cardiac arrest. And if you just look at the circle that's in front of us there, that truly is our ability to respond. And this is one of those calls where the system works. And if you look at the 911 side of it, the ability to have our dispatch center be able to locate the call, where they at, look at the resources, look at the closest available resources, and then dispatch those resources. Assist the people on scene with what we call EMD, or emergency medical dispatching, of teaching them or trying to tell them how to do CPR. Bystanders were there. They started CPR. I think we can see that our survival rates for the folks that are in the field, or that is somebody, our survival rates for people drastically go up when we have CPR started. And I'll talk about the community involvement folks and their ability to get out there and teach CPR, and especially nowadays with hands-only CPR. So CPR is done by what you all have done as far as the deployment model. Companies were alerted, dispatched, and you had 5 members, 2 members on a medic unit and 3 members on an engine company respond and arrive on scene within 4 minutes. Once again, our standard of how do we get them there. And then you look at the work that they did once they arrived on scene, is that you have the resources because of the staffing that you had there. They managed the patient's airway, they performed CPR, they managed IV access, they defibrillated the patient, intubated the patient, and we really need those 5 members. And if you look there, they did all that, packaged the patient, did it on scene within 8 minutes, take the patient out, and then transported, maintaining that to the hospital. And part of that is something that we all just saw just recently with the Lucas device, which is shown to have a very positive outcome. And on a workload, as you see there, it takes somebody that would normally be doing CPR and allows it to mechanically being able to do. Our 41-year-old male arrived at Kaiser. They were able to have ventilations and spontaneous return of a heart rate. He spent some time there, left there, went to a rehab facility now, and the outlook looks very positive for him. So again, I just wanted to take just a minute to look at that circle and to look at the service that, I mean, we talk about a lot of things in here, but that's really what is so important about what we do every day is right there. And that is a system that fell in place and worked the way it was supposed to. So thank you for your support of the district, and thank you for allowing us to do that little circle up there, probably about 200 times a day. That ends my report at this time.
That is awesome. Chief Bridge.
Good evening, President Wood and fellow directors. Chief Arms, Eric Bridge, Chief of Operations. Just want to give you an update on everything that happened, it's happening down in the south area as well, and how our folks are helping out with that, that whole mess that they got going on. But before I do that, I'll just give you a recap, a little bit of the numbers over the last year. Just recently, since our last board meeting, we've had over 10,500 calls for service, of which 7,500 of those were EMS. And we're maintaining that 73 transport rate of those calls as well. AMR's has been helping us out with 1,000 of those calls. But last year, in 2016, we were dispatched about 75,000 EMS calls out of 96,000 total. So 96,000, close to 97,000 calls for service for Metro Fire puts us about a 2% increase from 2015. So that's down just a couple percentage points from, normally we'll see an increase of 4 to 5% or 6%, but we see 2%. So, but the trend is going up, and we're at the way it's been going the last few weeks. We've been on pace to run about 150,000 calls. So, but I'm sure it all levels out at some point, hopefully. Let's see what else do I tell you about that. Going into the storm, we did some preparation with some upstaffing of our boats and the helicopter, which has proved to be very valuable. Our members in the field have been preparing for the floods and all the potential rescue opportunities that have been presented, and we've had a few of them. There was one in Rio Linda where we had a medical aid call in a house that there was no access to except either a inflatable type of boat, or in this case we used engine 311. I think it was 8433. It was one of our OES Type 3 rigs that went out there and was able to bring the patient back out to one of our ambulances for transport. But for the most part, in Metro's jurisdiction, we haven't had a whole lot. Fortunately, most of the community members have chosen wisely to stay off, but we've had a few folks that we've helped off some island portions of the American River, and there's not too many of those left right now with the flows. So just for perspective, the American River's flowing at 60,000 cubic feet a second right now, and typically, it wasn't too long ago, we're seeing it around 1,500 cubic feet a second. So it's flowing pretty good, and all the high gates at Folsom are open. Haven't seen that in about 10 years. So it's a pretty impressive sight if you ever drive over the Folsom Crossing. Down in the south area, just so you know, our participation in the to help out with Cosumnes River Fire District and the Sheriff's Department of what's going on down there. Many of our members here are part of the Type 3 incident management team, and it was earlier today that the Sac County OES had decided to open up the Emergency Operations Center, at which point we supported that request, and where I spent most of my afternoon, and at least getting a process rolling to help support the incident that's going on down in the south area. So they're preparing they want to get ahead of it in case there is a levee break. So, because that's not the time to do your planning. So the time is to start now. So they are planning for that. There's nothing imminent right now. There's nothing like that, but you want to be ahead of the game. So our members, along with some of the other regional members, have formed the team, a partial team activation, and are doing a great job working with our regional partners from the county and DWR, and we're coming up with some plans and benchmarks and timelines in place. So there'll be an operations briefing later tonight, and then operational periods will be 12-hour operational periods beginning tomorrow morning at 0700. But we will have folks staffed in that EOC overnight tonight. The helicopter proves to be the most valuable asset in this arena for obvious reasons, the eye in the sky. They're able to help access the boats or direct the boats in terms of where's the best, quickest way to get to, because once they remove family members out of their homes, the next question is which way do you go to get them to dry land? And that's difficult to navigate when you're in the boat. So the helicopter's proven valuable there and has hoist capabilities and ALS capabilities, as you all probably are aware of. I think to this point, Chief Johnson, do you know if they used any hoist capabilities today? As far as I was not aware, we did not today, but the opportunity did almost present itself. But we do like to go from a low risk profile to the high risk, so therefore we chose the boats and choose not to hoist anyone away unless we absolutely have to. So that's kind of the recap on that. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything else. It didn't seem like a whole lot of action on Metro Fire's part, but I'll tell you why that, I believe, in my opinion, is really it's because of the training and the preparedness that the folks on the engines and trucks that they do on a daily basis. They're very intimately familiar with the flows on the river, and they know how to prepare for them. They know how to stage. That's why we upstaffed a lot of these things, and I think that's a lot of the reason why we had success this last 4 or 5 days. So the crest should peak by tomorrow or tonight. Somewhere between midnight and 5 a.m. will be the crest. You should start to see some receding going on beginning tomorrow afternoon. So we have the helicopter up tomorrow. It'll be in service to survey the area in case of any more needs, and of course keeping an eye on that levee break as well. So we'll be monitoring that closely, and that's the end of my report unless you have any further questions.
Thank you very much, Chief. Any questions for Chief Bridge?
Okay, we're good.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to General Counsel's report
No report.
and Local 522.
Good evening, Board of Directors. Ty Bailey, Local 522. Good evening. I was here when last month when the new directors were sworn in, and I want to publicly thank you here tonight. For those of you who are reelected, and for those of you who are new to the Metro Fire Board, I want to welcome you. This is my 6th year in this position. The last 5 years, obviously through tough economic times, different deployment models, it's been a rough patch, I would say. And what I would like to say is this is a new year, and I think we're starting off in the right direction. So I thank you for that. Just to tag along, I got right in front of me the Lucas device. I've had the ability to use it as a captain, paramedic in the field. We've had some great feedback from the paramedics in the field. And I know the 2 times that I've used it recently, we've actually brought the person back, whether or not, that's considered a field save because it's not, a year later. But I can tell you they work well, and we do appreciate the board making that move to get those because they're definitely a good tool for us to have in the field. So thank you. Last month, we had our first labor management committee meeting, and Chief Harms and I, as well as his staff and the rest of 522's board, Metro Fire's board, myself, Sean Condit, John Barsdale, Brian Rice. Every month we're going to be meeting, and we're meeting because we're trying to get ahead of things before they become those rough patches again. And that's what it's really about. It's about making things better, and when there's problems, we try to come up with solutions rather than let them continue to go on so that they cannot be fixed. And so Chief Harms, coming from Phoenix Fire, I know had a really good labor management background in his 29 years there. And I spoke with the union members in Phoenix, and I know this is something they've utilized in the past, and we've kind of mirrored what they did, and we'll be moving forward with that. And I think that's how you rebuild and start to move forward with some of the issues that we've had in the past, is you get ahead of them so that they don't become the issues that you can't fix. Obviously, the grievance procedure that we have, it is truly that. It's a procedure. And I cannot tell people not to file grievances. What 522 does is we make sure that the representation is there during that process. It's not anything personal to you as a board. It's something that we just make sure that we are there to make sure the process is correct for the member to go through that process. We met and reviewed the EPCR policy recently with Chief Hine, and we have signed off on the EPCR policy draft. I want to congratulate all the retirees on their retirement. Roman Rubikava, who recently retired, as well as several other members, were in the union at one time. But Roman did a lot of work for us, and I want to thank him for all of his hard work that he did for 522. He's still sitting on the Board of Trustees for us as a retiree, so we'll still see his work at the labor side for us in his retirement. We had shop steward elections recently, and I want to congratulate Kaylin Clark, Mike McGoldrick, and Joel Roberts on their election as shop stewards. Michelle Idem, I want to thank you for all the hard work that you've done as the PIO for Metro Fire. I know that Michelle is going to be returning back to the line. It's not an easy job being out there as the PIO, and I want to thank you for all the hard work that you've done over the last at least 5 years. So, tomorrow we have a meet and discuss on the single role paramedic LOU with HR and EMS. We'll be moving forward on possibly looking at a change in language when it comes to holiday pay. And the last thing I just want to speak about is in May of last year, we ratified our contract with the tentative agreement. I'm getting calls daily. I'm getting emails, calls. Our directors are getting calls. We need to finalize the language on that MOU. We still do not have a completed MOU to date for our members to look at and to refer to with the changes that we voted on. And we have a meeting on the 19th, and I truly believe that we need to get this done and be done with it so we can move forward. The TA was voted on, and that's what we're working off of. Now we need to just put the language together on the intent of what it was voted on so that we can have an MOU to refer to. And we're not only getting the phone calls now for those who are trying to figure out retirement dates on pay raises and benefits, but we have a captain's test coming up in a few months, and we have people studying for those captain's exam, a captain exam coming up, and they don't know what to be reviewing at the time. And so I think it's imperative that we move forward and get that finalized. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you so much, Ty, for the detail. Appreciate that. Any questions or comments for Mr. Bailey?
All right.
No?
Thank you.
We'll move on to committee and delegate reports. Start off with the executive committee. We met this evening. We voted members onto our finance and audit committee and our policy committee. The finance and audit committee will consist of Randy Orzali, Director Kelly, and Director Sheets for 2017. Look forward to their work with Amanda Thomas. Our policy committee was voted as Directors Gould, Director Gale, and Director Clark. So look forward to good things coming out of them next year. And the executive committee does not have another meeting on calendar at this point. Move on to the Comm Center JPA, Chief Bridge.
Yes, thank you. The Communications Center JPA met on December the 13th, and we approved on a personnel contract, but no other further action was taken, and our next board meeting will be here Tuesday, January 31st at 9 a.m.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the California Fire and Rescue Training JPA, Director Kelly.
Yes, the JPA has not met since I last reported out. I believe we were scheduled to meet tomorrow. However, now I see that it is indicated that it's going to be to be determined. So I will look for emails where they have rescheduled that meeting.
All right. And Finance and Audit Committee, they haven't met yet, but Director Jones?
Thank you. Yes, our newly formed Finance Committee will have their first meeting on Thursday, January 26th, 5 o'clock in this room. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director. And the Policy Committee, Director Gould.
It looks like we're going to have a meeting on February 9th at 5 o'clock. You should all put that on your calendars. It's an awesome time.
All right, we'll move on to board member questions and comments. We'll start off on my left with Director Kelly. And we'll go over to the right with Director Gale.
Probably the biggest thing that happened, we lost Clemson, but we're not crying, but the program that was started at Clemson that made it good was a Mobilian, as a matter of fact. He went to school about 2 blocks from my house at Barton Academy. So we will live with that defeat, but, you know.
Go Tigers.
You go with it. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Moving back over, Director Clark.
All I want to say is that I'm grateful for the work that our men and women have done during this flood, and it's a reflective, the fact that things went smoothly and no one got hurt is a reflection of our preparedness and our constant ability to supply our members with the right equipment and the training.
Thank you, Director Clark. We'll move over to Director Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank all of those that have retired for their years of service. It's always amazing to me, just the sheer number of years that represents, and puts more pressure on us to find new and equally as bright people and then give them decades and decades of experience. But that takes decades and decades, so we're behind the power curve. Thank you very much. Have a great year.
Thank you, Director. Director Sheets.
I just want to reiterate what he said about the men and women out there. The emergency department is certainly seeing a huge influx, and the Lucas devices that are coming in are amazing. And they are truly saving people's lives. But I also wanted to take a moment to just reflect on the people that are in the community of Wilton. I have several nurses that live out there, and they are unfortunately underwater, a lot of them, so just keeping them in our thoughts and our prayers. That's all.
Thank you, Director. Director Orzali.
Thank you. I just wanted to, first of all, express my appreciation to Chief Harms for the messages that have been coming out to the board. That's been very useful, and I think I speak for all of us when I tell you we appreciate it. The Lucas devices are something I've been interested in for a long time, and since the first one came to the district, and I'm so pleased to hear the reports from the field about how much they appreciate having them. They make a huge difference, and I'm surprised at the amount of difference they are making so rapidly. And even though, to me, they will always be known as what Chief Wells called them, the thumper things, they make a real difference for our communities. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. Director Jones.
Thank you. Echoing all the comments that my fellow directors have made, thank you to each and every one of you for your comments. I wholeheartedly support them. I would also like to add that I'm really glad that we're moving forward on a behavioral health program development, Chief. That's really good news. It's going to keep us moving forward. Let's see. Captain Item, thank you. Heck of a job all these years. Thank you very much, and best of luck out in the field. Go get them. That's great. Reflecting on 96,000 calls for a call volume. Whew. In the last century, when I was actually working as a firefighter, it was a really big deal when we broke 20. It's a comparative agency. So and now we're about, oh my gosh, almost five times that amount. And we have less people, less stations. Everyone, that is when we keep saying and praising the work that every fire response, every medical response does in this district and in surrounding districts. This is an example of the workload. Just in my career lifetime, it has quintupled, is that the right word? It has increased 5 times, from 20,000 to almost 100,000. those stats just, they're out there, and I really, really, really want all of our citizens to appreciate that humongous increase in workload. That says everything.
Thank you, Director. I just have a couple of comments. First of all, I want to, on December 22nd, thanks to Craig Osborne at the Anatolia HOA bringing the issue to us, we did get the opportunity to go out and give a life-saving accommodation to two residents of Anatolia, Sarah Debrikoff and Julia Stowell. There's a young boy that's alive today because of their actions in getting him out of the pool, administering CPR, and following up with that. So I want to thank Chief Casantini, Chief Hines, and I didn't get their names because I was very sick, but the crew from 68 that showed up. So thank them for all the effort and all the energy they put into that. It was a great event and much appreciated. Captain Item, you've done so much work for us over the years. It's been wonderful to see you on TV. You always got a big smile, and all the channels here love you. And so you're going to be some big shoes to fill. Good luck when you go back into the field. And with that, we'll move into closed session.
Mr. President, did I understand you to say that Captain Item has big feet? Is that?
I'm not going.
That's what I
I'm not
don't know.
going there. But to those of you who don't need to be here, go home.
I heard big feet.
Director Gale? I don't know where he went. Somebody's supposed to keep an eye on it. Yeah. Okay. Ready to get back underway? Oh, is he coming back, or did we lose him for good?
Talking to Chief.
Oh, okay. When you said we lost him, I thought you meant we lost him, like he went home.
No one knows. He's MIA. They think he may have gone around. Or he may have left. You said, okay, we're done. If you're literal, that means like go home. I think he may have just boogied.
Like Sac County, when they do their Board of Supervisors meetings, they go all day.
See, that's the difference. If I had done that, nobody'd search.
No. No, hell no. Actually, I think it'd be, oh, Candy's not here. Awesome.
Holy crap,
Let's close this dog.
Whether it was up there or not.
Okay, we now have got a USAR team out looking for the director. Have we dispatched the ops team? Director Gale, come back to the meeting.
Well, Director Wood, I can report out on the
Yeah, we can get going. They'll find him eventually.
Okay.
Let's do that. Mr. Lawver, would you report out on closed session, please?
Yes, thank you, President Wood. The board met in closed session to consider the workers' compensation claim of Donald
Hochulberg, and by a vote of 8-0 with Director Barnes absent, the board voted to give approval to its third-party administrator to effectuate a settlement of that workers' compensation claim. The matter under Section 1B of the agenda was not taken up in closed session. Finally, the workers' compensation claim of John Gormley was considered by the board, and by a vote of 8-0 with Director Barnes absent, voted to provide a workers' compensation settlement authority to its third-party administrator to effectuate a settlement of that workers' compensation claim. Next, the board discussed in closed session the industrial disability retirement claim of John Gormley. No action was taken on that matter, and it will be taken up in open session here in a moment. The third item was the personnel matter concerning the fire chief's employment contract. Discussion was had. No action was taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council. Do I have a motion on the IDR for Mr. Gormley?
So move.
I'll second.
I've got a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please?
Director Gould,
Aye.
Orzali. Aye. Jones,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
and Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Our next board meeting will be January 26, 2017 at 6 o'clock in this room, and we are adjourned until then.